going on? This is your host, Dr. Jeff C. May, and welcome to another episode of Doctor's Orders. In fact, this is the first episode of Season 2. So if you've been with us for Season 1, thank you for sticking through it. If you're here for Season 2, welcome. And for all of you, buckle up and get ready. This is an unfiltered, pretty much family-friendly show where we dive into things that are keeping us held back. And 99.9% of this is just stuff in my life. Stuff that I feel I've been very, very fortunate, very blessed in my life. And I say blessed because I believe in God. And God has a purpose for my life. And I know He has one for you too. Now, this isn't a church podcast. This isn't anything like that. It is what it is. And as you go through life, you learn lessons, and lessons are meant to be shared. You see, there's unknown things that are meant to be for God, but there's also revealed things that are meant for you and meant for your kids. And that's just fact. It's found in Deuteronomy 29:29. And so I was sitting there reading that this morning, and I thought, you know what? There are some things I want to share. And the title of this episode is Stories and Systems, Why Yours Suck. And that may offend somebody. And good for you. You should figure out why that offends you and dive into that, because there's probably a lesson in that. So today I'm going to talk about these stories and systems. And these are two things where I've been super, super fortunate to learn from my mentors and going through and really doing some hardcore hitting work. And I think therapists are great. I think they serve a purpose, but at some point you need to become your own therapist. You need to learn tools and strategies that actually get you in under the hood and figuring out, why do I react a certain way? Why does this bother me? There's a lot of things that you get to learn, and self-learning is a never-ending battle. There is no finish line. And so stories and systems, these are the two things that run a lot of our behaviors. So what's a story? A story is your innermost dialogue. It's mainly subconscious, and it'll drive your behavior. So what I'm telling you is that we all run our life on stories. We're constantly running a story, and they're most oftentimes based on our experience. For example, if, growing up, I remember we grew up in a small town in Nebraska, and sports were a big thing. Football and basketball and track. Those are the three main sports. We didn't have hockey. We didn't have lacrosse. We didn't have soccer. We didn't have any of those things. It was football in the fall, basketball in the winter, and then track in the spring. And so I remember my freshman year, I chose not to go out for football. And that didn't sit well with the high school coach. Not because, this is not me saying, because I was going to be the winning ticket. This was not it. This was not because the coach was pissed off that he missed out on a great opportunity to develop a young athlete who had a future career in football. That was not the case. In fact, that is a bold-faced lie. What it may have been is just the fact that numbers, and everybody was expected to play football. Everybody was expected to play the sport. If you play the sport, you should play the sport. And I played basketball. I was heavily involved in high school rodeo and roping in the rodeo world, and all the stuff you see on Yellowstone now today, I was doing growing up. So that was my world, and that wasn't looked upon very in a good light. And I remember the coach pulling me aside one time, and it was in between class and those things, and he literally was just giving me a hard time. And it may look like as harassment, but basically he was calling me a pansy. He was calling me a pussy. He was calling me a lot of different things that wouldn't probably fly in today's world. However, it's just how we grew up. And it was because I wasn't playing football. Now a couple of stories are going on at this point, and I'm using this as an example for what is a story. There's a story in the high school football coach's head that if a kid doesn't go out for football and he plays other sports or whatever, maybe he's an athlete, that he must be a pussy, a sissy, whatever word you want to use, a weak individual, whatever it is, that he must be less. And that was his story he was running. Now, in my head, there was stories being developed that if I didn't play football, maybe I wasn't good enough, or maybe I wasn't a man, or maybe, maybe I was a sissy, or whatever it was. There were stories going on. And so I'm sure there was times where in my high school career, I started thinking less of myself because I didn't play football. This is an example of a story. So I built these subconscious stories that if I was going to be strong, I was going to be a good individual, or the male role model, whatever it is, like that part of it, I had to play football. That's a story. So what stories are going on in your life? Because your stories will drive your behaviors. And you see these stories at some point. Now I'm old enough. Now I know that I can go through and realize that these stories, hey, do they serve me or not? And you can really do this self-analysis and saying, hey, does that serve me? Now, I know growing up, you can ask yourself, is this story true? This is one of the easiest things. And so I had this story. if I didn't play high school football, I was weak. Now, is that story true? No, it's not true at all. Like 100% that story is not true. But there's a time in my life where I thought that story was 100% true. And so when you go in and you start analyzing these stories and you start saying, okay, does this story serve me? Is this story true? And you start peeling it back, you're going to find things really, really quick. And for some of you, it may be uncomfortable. For some of you, you may just stop doing it altogether. You could be like, whatever. I would rather my stories just go back to my subconscious. I'm just going to live my life. I'm going to sit on the couch. I'm going to watch Netflix. I'm going to be comfortable. I just want to be comfortable. Well, let me tell you something. The purpose of life is not to be comfortable. And if you're seeking comfort, you're seeking a world of sedation. You're seeking a world of like, I'm just going to put the blinders on. I'm going to ignore everything else around me. And then when I take them off, hopefully my life is magic. Hopefully my life is great. Hopefully I have everything that I cross my fingers for, that I hit my knees on the ground at night and pray for. I'm just going to close my eyes and put my blinders on. That is messed up. Unfortunately, that's a lot of places where people live. And at times in my life, I've lived in those places. And so these stories, you have to analyze the stories you're telling yourself. Are they true? Do they serve you? A key question after that is that, hey, are you ready to create a new story? And so going back to the example in the high school, it's like I had to eventually create a story. It's like, hey, football is not the only thing that you can express athletic talent in, or football doesn't define me. You know, my works, my actions, my impact on other people is what I'm going to base my life on, and not that I played high school football. That's another story. And once you realize that stories are just words, you can change the words and they can change the outcomes because you act based on these stories that are running in yourself. So your stories may suck in your life. They may not. They may be great, and that's awesome. But I'm saying that so many people this time of year, and it's the beginning of the year, and we're kicking off season 2 of the podcast, and all this stuff, and people are like, oh, this is going to be my year. It's going to be my year. It's a new year, new me. No, it's the same you, but you better get new stories. And that's a key friggin' difference. And if you're willing, if you're courageous enough, if you're brave enough to go through and say, I'm going to define my life. I'm going to go through and I'm going to start analyzing and I'm going to start going through stories that may not even serve you, may not even remember. It may be something back from your childhood that you haven't thought of in 50 years. And you realize you've been living yourself, or you've been living your life on a story that's false for 50 years. And so when you're ready to create that new story, realize that words are just stories, and you can change the words and you can change the story, which changes your behavior, which changes your outcomes. That's what all the gurus teach, all these things. They get hyped up. They get millions of followers on Instagram, all this stuff, and that's great. But a lot of that is smoke and mirrors, and they will never be able to get down to the depth of you. You can't pay somebody. You can't follow somebody. You can't like their posts or comment on their posts enough to substitute the time it takes for self-examinations, for self-learning. It's invaluable. And when you start to live that story, things really begin to change. And so now as we look at the concept of the stories, well, in the beginning, the title of this, I said that your stories and your systems suck. Well, people kind of figure out systems real quick. How I look at systems is your habits, is how you've set up your life to run. And most people think, well, business systems and those things and profit and efficiency and productivity. Yes, yes, and yes. I'm talking about, why is your toothbrush where it's at? I'm like, what? That's kind of a curveball. Kind of weird, Dr. Jeff. Yeah, but why is your toothbrush where it's at? Right now, everybody listening to this, think about where your toothbrush is and why is it there? Is there a better place for it? Is there a more efficient place to put your toothbrush? And you think that's really, really weird. But you see, your systems are your habits, your procedures. It's how you act out your day to day. And everything has a reason. From where your silverware is in your kitchen to how things are organized in your refrigerator or unorganized, or what you have in the console of your car. Think about these things. Everything is set up, and it's very, very rare that we ever take the time to say, hey, is this system efficient? Could this be more productive in my life? What if I did move my toothbrush to one drawer down? That would actually cause it to be quicker accessible. And maybe you save 1 second. Here's the thing. Let's play this out. Maybe you save 1 second of brushing your teeth. And you think, wow, you are off your rocker. You are absolutely cracked, Dr. Jeff. You need to get adjusted. Listen, I'm going to get adjusted because I get adjusted every week. #chiropractic. However, I'm saying you save 1 second. Now you go, and then that's 365 days a year. Follow me. 365 seconds that you have saved. Now, 60 seconds in a minute, do the math. So 60 goes into that 6 times. And you've now saved approximately 6 minutes in a year. Now, what if those 6 minutes were used to connect to one of your children? What if those 6 minutes were used to connect to your wife and explain to her how much you love her, or your husband, or whoever it may be? I'm just thinking through this in my head. What if it was 6 minutes where I use those 6 minutes to ask my kids how their day was? And 10 years from now, they remember I connected with them. I connected with them when it mattered the most, because they weren't going to say how they were having trouble with a friend at school. And because I took the time, because I had 6 minutes extra for moving my freaking toothbrush to a more efficient place in the morning, I was now able to help steer my child onto a path that changed their life. That's what stories and systems can do. And that's why I'm so freaking passionate about it, because we don't think that deep. We just think, oh, we're moving my toothbrush and we're saving 1 second a day. That is stupid. And that's what the world will tell you. The world will tell you what you're doing is stupid. And that's why when we don't slow down, we just continue with the stories we've been grown up with. Continue with the systems in place. Don't rock the boat. Don't do this. Don't cause a scene. Don't raise your voice. You need to be seen and not heard. All of these things that we live with, these stories that we live with from the time we grew up, are molding and shaping our experience in life and what we leave behind. And so if you don't love yourself enough to reveal the stories or the systems, I'm going to encourage you. I'm going to invite you. I'm going to challenge you. Whatever word you want to use, I'm going to challenge you to examine the stories and systems in your life today. I'm going to challenge you to examine those things that run your life day to day in order that you can be better tomorrow, or even today, or whatever it is. Everybody wants to say, I want to take it to the next level. I want to be a better version of myself. I want to do this. I want to do that. But they never define how to do that. They get people so hyped up on the possibility, and they sell you the possibility. So many products out there and so many coaches, they're selling possibility. They're not doing the work. They're not showing you how to do the work. It's not tactical. It's not practical. It is flashy. It is the posts. It is the likes, the comments, the followers on social media bullcrap that will fade away. I promise you, Facebook, Instagram, all those things, eventually, guess what? You know how much those are going to matter on your deathbed? Friggin' zero. Nobody on their deathbed says, man, I'm really glad I had 1 million followers. Zero people say that. They look around who's in the room, and that's it, and that's all that matters. And what happens next is between them and God. Period. End of story. So your homework, your assignment out of this episode, the first episode dropping of season 2 with Doctor's Orders, is to examine the stories and systems in your life and ask yourself, do they suck? Do they need to change? What stories are you living your life on? What systems in my life can save me 1 second a day and give me an extra 6 minutes a year that could change my child's life? That's the level of thinking that's going to be dropping on this year, this season. And I'm going to encourage you guys to do the homework. Do the homework. Examine your stories. Examine your systems. Sit down with your spouse. Get some feedback. Do whatever you need to do. The people in your inner circle. This is going to be a year where you're going to surround yourself with better people. You're going to surround yourself with better stories and better systems, and you're going to watch your life actually change for the better. To what level? What next level? I have no clue. I have no clue what that means. Take it up a notch, do whatever you want to say, whatever you need to say to yourself in the mirror to hype up. I'm going to tell you it's going to be better. And better is always better. So, homework, recap. Once again, study the stories and systems in your life. Examine them. Do those stories and systems serve you? If the answer is no, change them. Period. End of story. And those are your doctor's orders.